Hi everyone, my name is Molly and I play the viola. I want to talk to you today about external validation in the classical music world. Let's get into it. In my journey to becoming a better musician and happier person, I have set a goal for the month of February to practice a total of 70 hours, and I'll be giving my 2-week update on that at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. Almost a year ago, before the pandemic started, I derived almost all of my motivation to practice from external validation in the form of my teacher saying the words, "Good job," or someone in studio class giving me a genuine compliment on my playing, or winning a competition, or an acceptance into a summer program. But I started to become fixated on external validation. And it got to a point where I was scoping out social media, trying to find fellow music students who had done things that seemed more impressive and more important than the things that were on my resume, trying to figure out everything they did to get to that point and what festivals did they go to and how can I go to those festivals and how can I be someone who other people find on social media and say, wow, her resume is really impressive. I gave all these forms of external validation so much power over me. And the scary thing was, especially when it came to acceptance into summer programs, I had no idea whether or not I would receive that validation I so desperately hoped for. It got to the point where I felt like I couldn't trust my own self to know if I was making good progress on my instrument or if a performance that I gave at school was good or bad. Good or bad. So every week for my lesson, I would really hope that my teacher would say something good about my playing. And every week when I performed in studio class, I would really hope that my fellow violists would say something good about my playing. And even if they did say something good, I found the slight variations in wording that they chose in their compliment to still question whether they really thought that I did a good job or not. This was all leading to that infamous time in February and March when you find out if you were accepted to the things you applied to or not. I made so many recordings and applied to so many festivals. And I remember just spending so much energy agonizing over each take, thinking, well, this take is good, but there's this note in the first line that some people might think is a little bit flat, and I don't know if they would accept me if I sent this one in. I overanalyzed my takes so much, and I spent so much time overanalyzing. Guess what I wasn't doing? Practicing. I wasn't practicing in the way that would have helped me to play better. I started to stagnate on my instrument. It felt bad, and I felt like, I know I wasn't getting worse, but it felt like each performance was just worse because it piled on more doubt about if I was doing well or not. But then festival results came out and I got rejected from all of the ones that I applied to. And it's really hard to say that because I had had a good streak of 4 summers in a row going to festivals. I really enjoyed it, and I had adopted the opinion, which is not true by the way, that I needed to go to festival after festival every year, and I needed to go to increasingly more prestigious festivals every year, or I was regressing or doing poorly. I had never spent so much time worrying about if I would get into these places and be validated by these panels of people listening to me that I didn't even personally know who they were. I spent the most energy out of any audition cycle agonizing and overthinking the whole process, and I got the worst results of any audition cycle I've ever had. I just remember, like, I used to approach things with energy and confidence and hopefulness. Getting older and becoming a graduate student and having some success behind me put a lot of pressure on me to keep one-upping myself and having more accolades on my resume and having more things to post about on social media and having more impressive experiences that would set me up to succeed in my career. And it's not to say festivals aren't important or fun and that I shouldn't want to go to one, but I created a scenario in my mind where so much was riding on me getting into one of these festivals. And when I didn't, I was just so devastated because my worldview at the time was, the way I describe it now obviously makes it seem ridiculous. I didn't feel it was ridiculous at the time, but I was behaving as though my teacher and every viola teacher in the country and everyone listening to my auditions was in some sort of hive mind that knew what was good enough and what was not good enough to get into that festival, and no one told me. And they let me believe that I was good enough to get in when I wasn't this whole time. And the trust that had been dwindling in myself to accurately assess my progress on my instrument just went so much lower. But literally 1 week later, everything got shut down. The pandemic really hit hard in the United States, and I flew home for 5 months, did online school, just stayed home. I took long stretches of time where I didn't really practice. I was upset about the results of my applications, and also I just realized that the thing that was motivating me to practice was the hope of being validated by external sources. And as all musicians know, all auditions and concerts and performances and gigs just like disappeared. So there was no fear of doing poorly or getting rejected that was making me want to practice. My relationship with my instrument suffered a severe fracture. There was a big trust issue with myself of being able to hear how I was playing and know it was a good sound or not. But slowly over time, when I felt like I could come back to it, I would get my instrument out and practice. There was long stretches of the summer where I didn't have a lesson. So the type of goals I started making weren't to make this recording so I can get into that festival because that's on their requirement list, or things like that. I learned pieces that I wanted to learn. And I gave myself the space to learn non-standard repertoire that competitions and auditions don't typically ask for. I listened to myself really closely when I was practicing, and my confidence started to return because now I was focused on being my own teacher, my own mentor, and my own good influence. I was starting to be able to listen to what was coming out of my instrument and assess it with a level head. I actually really surprised myself with the level of expertise that I never gave myself credit for before. Now, I didn't solve my big issue then, and I still haven't solved it now. I'm very oriented toward external validation because you can't supply yourself with all the validation you'll ever need. But I have been better with drawing my motivation to pursue my goals and crafting my goals from a place within me that recognizes my strengths, acknowledges my intelligence and capability, and excites me to push the limits of my potential and see how far I can go. I feel like my confidence is coming back. I can feel it when I'm playing in performances at school and playing for my teacher and just practicing at home. I'm not wondering, is this in tune? I'm not waiting until my lesson for my teacher to say that was in tune or that was out of tune. I know what's in tune. I have a bachelor's of music degree. I have a lot of knowledge about what good viola playing is, and I know how to rely on that knowledge now. And the truth is, there's so many qualified people out there for all those spots in the orchestras and summer programs and graduate programs. There's not one person who is predetermined and designed to be the tuba player at Music Academy of the West, for example. There's a lot of people qualified for that. There's only one spot. Who wins the audition is really just based on, out of the qualified applicants, who's playing in that one time that they recorded it and sent it in, agreed the most with whoever is on that particular panel listening and deciding on whatever day they decided to listen to and whatever mood they're in, who gets the tuba position. The knowledge of that reality has freed me from feeling like if I get a rejection, it's because I'm not good enough. I've heard the performances from the students at lots of these festivals, and I know how I play. I know that I'm qualified for a lot of the top level festivals in the country, and just because you get rejected from one doesn't mean you weren't good enough necessarily. So I've come up with 3 ways that you can start deriving motivation to practice from positive places within. In addition to working hard on the skills you need to improve, play any random piece that you love, or sing along to your favorite album, or figure out the chords on piano or guitar to a favorite song of yours. Spend time with your instrument or just with music in general in a way that involves no risk, low stakes, and 0 judgment. Make goals for yourself that only you will evaluate yourself on. If the only time you ever make recordings is for auditions and then you don't pass the audition, you'll start to associate recordings with rejection or just desperation for approval from someone you've never even met. Make the goals doable and create ways to meet them and give yourself the validation you deserve. And the last way is to play for the people in your life who have no clue if you're playing well or not. No matter how many mistakes you make, they will love to hear you and will likely compliment you on strengths you didn't even realize you had as a musician, or traits that you don't typically value from studying music so closely all the time. There's gonna be times when you get a rejection email that you were really hoping would be an acceptance, and that's gonna feel like crap. And of course, no one can blame you. We spend so long working on our repertoire and our technique. We think about music so deeply and on a personal level that any rejection or lack of approval feels personal. But I want you to know that it probably is not personal. And the biggest strength you can develop is to be confident that you did your best and to know your strengths in your own playing before you even send that recording in. Because then ideally the acceptance letter is just the cherry on top. So we've come to the part of the video where I give my second weekly update on my practice goal for February. So this is the amount that I practiced this week. As you can see, most days of the week I practiced more than that same day in the previous week. Last week, I said that I wanted to take advantage of the days where I had more motivation and go well beyond my 2.5 hour average goal per day. And I think I did a good job of that. Something that might not be evident just from looking, but I'll explain, is that starting on Thursday, I started to get tired and my energy levels kept depreciating. But the mistake I made was I didn't really recognize that and heed that intuition from my body that I needed a rest day. And I kept saying, I could just practice more and more tomorrow. I'm so excited, I'm practicing so much. And then when it came time to practice, I would be very sluggish and procrastinate. My body and mind are understandably exhausted from playing more than I ever have before in a consistent fashion. And they were telling me subconsciously, I need a break. Don't practice another 3 hours today. So something I'm gonna do differently this week is give myself a rest day. I also wanna pump up the days where I played under 2 hours by shaving off 10 minutes from my normal 40-minute warm-up routine and adding in 30 minutes of an etude practice. And I'm not gonna be playing this etude for my teacher. This is kind of what I was saying earlier, just a goal for myself that I'm going to evaluate myself on to increase my own internal validation and increase my practicing a little bit, hopefully this week, to stay more consistent than I have been. I'm a little bit behind schedule in order to reach the 70 hours this month, but the good thing is I'm learning how to be more consistent, and I'm hoping that each week I'll be practicing a little more than the last week. But even if I don't reach 70 hours, I am more consistent and dealing with my procrastination so much healthier than I ever have in my entire life, and I'm so proud of myself for that. So I want to hear from you guys. What struggles have you had with external validation, with rejection, with drawing your motivation from a positive or negative place? I want to know. Comment below, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Here's my Instagram. Please follow me if you're interested. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.